well, good afternoon, because we are now in the evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Regina Coley. I am the motivator, cultivator, and educator coming to you again with 21 days of power programming. So today we're going to be talking about securing the space. And I have my notebook because we're going to be reviewing so many things today. You're going to want to get your notebook out if you have ever considered either renting out space for a workshop, a seminar, a conference, your program. If you wanted to go into a facility to host your program, we're going to get into that because Leading Ladies of Legacy has had a facility in the past, and there were so many lessons I learned with dealing with commercial space that I want to share with you all today. So please, if you have a piece of paper and a notebook, go ahead and get it handy. If you are watching the replay, pause, go get some paper and pen. Even if this is on your radar for, let's say, a couple of years from now, you're not really in that space yet, you still want to go ahead and start thinking about what this means for your organization and if this is a route you even want to take. And I will share with you a little bit of the do's and don'ts of what to do in terms of the space. So we're going to start talking about if you want to have your own program in a facility first, your own office space. And this is a little bit bigger than just hosting your offices. If you want to have a space where, let's say if you're having a youth program, your kids are coming to meet there, the parents are coming to meet there. Because my program is a full-fledged organization, there were quite a few things that were held there, like our volunteer orientations were there, our volunteer trainings were there. If we had people who wanted to come in, all of our events were hosted there. People would come there and get information, registration forms and all that, so it kind of did double up as an office space as well. But when I set my intentions, it was mostly for us finding a space that could host a program. I was doing things at the library, I was doing things at the local community center, but the problem is when you're trying to host something that extends beyond those hours and there's no availability. And so constantly getting told, oh, somebody's in that space, or we close at 6, or the latest you can be here is 1. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for my schedule. So out of that frustration of just wanting to have the freedom to have my own space, to have a little bit more flexibility with the program, and to have our stuff be in one place where it's not constantly having to be moved and put into a bin and brought back and forth. I just wanted the peace of mind that my office is my office and our home base is our home base. So I got online. I started looking for commercial realty spaces. I ended up finding the space that we moved into on cityfeet.com. And there are a number of commercial realty spaces that you can search for in your area. I think cityfeet.com is available for all spaces in the United States. I just put in retail space is what I typed in. So it wasn't necessarily that I searched for office space. I wanted to search for retail space. I knew that I needed about 1,500 square feet. And the facility that we found was 1,400 square feet, and it ended up working for us. I had to think on my end if there was any type of approvals necessary, like if you're working with kids or you have something that's like an after-school program and you have to be approved from your child care division. They can only approve each room for a certain amount of kids to fit in. So I had to think about how many kids do I want to serve. That means if the rules and regulations say each child has 34 or 35 square feet, how many kids can I actually feasibly host in this space? So you want to start to think about that too. If you have those kind of stipulations in the facility that you are looking for, and it's some rules and regulations around what it is that you're able to do, you have to start looking for spaces that fall within that guideline. For me, because we offered a specialized program, we did not have to have a playground. I know that some places are like, the kids need to be able to get outside, so there's a requirement for outdoor space. We did not have to do that. So looking at the rules and regulations for your particular state, for your particular business are critical, because you don't want to get yourself into a space and then find out later on this space doesn't meet any of those requirements, and now you have to start paying to have stuff either built or built out or worst case scenario, you have to leave. Secondly, if you get a, geez, so many wasps today. If you get a commercial space, you definitely need a realtor. So I found the realtor that I ended up choosing. He was at the bottom of some of the properties I was seeing, and I realized that he was over a lot of the spaces in that particular area. I am going to ease over just a little. Okay. So we ended up working together. He ended up taking me to see quite a few spaces. I let him know my requirements, what I was in need of. The space that we ended up finding, I definitely wanted to have more than one bathroom. That particular space only had one, so I was thinking about having additional bathroom spaces built out. So think about that as well. If you're having lots of people, especially if you're having an event and there's only one toilet and I have to wait, and I'm thinking, I'm working with women and girls, you know, we take our time in the bathroom doing all of this here, and then somebody has to go. It could potentially have been a detrimental situation. Although it never was, it could have been. So things that I also was thinking about. So here's what you want to do. Here's your checklist. And I'm also going to preface this by saying we have our facility checklist made available to you, as well as additional support information in the Call to Cultivate Masterclass. You can find out more information about that at reginacoley.com/cultivate. If you need somebody to help walk you through this process, trust me, I'm a good go-to person because, like I said, been there, done that, made a ton of mistakes, learned so many lessons, but know how to do it the right way now. Everything that I'm sharing with you in this 21 days of programming are things that I'm currently working on now. So am I looking for additional commercial realty space? Yes, I'm keeping my eyes out. Where are the good spaces? Where are there good neighborhoods? Where are there safe communities? Where will be another great launch pad for us to land? So as I'm doing this within my own organization, I'm sharing out with you. So I hope that you find it beneficial. So here is the checklist of things to do. Once you get into the space, you're either viewing it by yourself if you have a lock code and the realtor has allowed you to go in and view the space on your own. Great. Whether you're there with them or you're there by yourself, bring your camera with you because you want to take pictures. And sometimes there are properties where the electricity isn't on, and I've had to use either bring a flashlight or use my phone flashlight to view certain spaces within the facility. So if your electricity is on, what you want to do is bring with you, let's like a little tote bag or your pocketbook. Bring your cell phone charger. You want to walk around, you want to test all of the outlets. When I got into my space, I realized a couple of the outlets in the space did not even work. Didn't know that because I walked through and I tested a few. I did not test them all. And you have the ability to go into that space as many times as you like before you lease it. So if the first time that you walk through is just a walkthrough, and the second time you're going through and you're doing your checklist, do that. But you want to make sure that in that space, you are definitely going through and checking all those outlets, because if you have any electrical issues, you need to know before you sign your name on that lease what's going on in that space. So bring your cell phone charger, test the outlets. Second thing you want to do, especially if the water is on, is turn on the faucets. Make sure that the water is working. Make sure that when it comes on, there's no other leaks happening anywhere else in the space. Next, you want to look for leaks up in the ceiling, looking for brown spots in your tile on the ceiling, looking for bubbles on the wall, looking for stains on the ground, brown stains, because they tend to signify that there is a leaking issue. I saw these brown stains in my facility. I remember asking the realtor, and they said, oh no, it's because the space has been sitting for so long. Lo and behold, every single time, and we were in Georgia, you know, we get terrible thunderstorms and rainstorms. When those things came through, those spaces were leaking like crazy. And I was about to have my smart boards installed on the wall. So can you imagine the loss that I would have suffered from my pockets from having all these electronics mounted on the wall, and then all these leaks come through? So if you're looking for leaks and you see them and you ask about them, ask them what's going on. When was the last time this has been fixed? Can you show me a document where you had your roofing guy come recently and check. When my roofing guy came, he got up on that roof, he saw all kinds of holes in that ceiling. I did not have my roofing guy do that before I signed my lease because there wasn't any issues until it started raining. And because I moved in, I want to say right at the beginning of summer, it wasn't that particular year, it wasn't raining a lot. But when it did start, it became a huge, huge, huge issue. And to that effect, make sure that you have somebody check your utility lines, because in the same respect, our air conditioner worked fine. Everything worked fine. As we eased into the winter months, when it was time to cut that heater on, and I slid that thing over, nothing came on. And I kept saying, why isn't my heater coming on? What's going on? Maybe there's something, wrong here. Had the guy for the gas company come on out. He said that there's no pilot light. There is no basically no heating system. It had to be installed. I'm like, hold on. At that point, and I'll get into the story, there were so many issues. I had to just call the realtor, and we had to really have a real conversation. But if you're in a space where you can't provide heat, I had to go out and buy space heaters. I had events scheduled all throughout January and February. December, it really hadn't gotten that cold, but January, February, it was freezing. So I had to preheat the space for hours if I knew I was going to have an event, so that it felt comfortable when people were there. So you're thinking to yourself, if I'd have just known from the beginning that this didn't work, I would have never been here. But make sure that you check your utilities. Cutting them on, like I said, if the power is on in the building, cut that AC on, cut the heater on, make sure that it works. Let it run for a minute, because sometimes stuff sounds like it's working, it'll crank up, and then it'll cut right back off. So check your faucets for water and check your utilities. Make sure the cooling and the heating systems work, because again, that's a lot of money that you have to pay to replace those things when they don't work. And sometimes it falls on you, sometimes it falls on your landlord, depending on what you agreed upon in your lease terms. Next, you want to ask, why has the space been sitting? The space that we were in, it was sitting for at least 3 years. 3 years. Which I thought at the time was an advantage for me, because I said, oh, I can negotiate this space down to whatever price I want to, because it's been sitting. And I'm pretty sure they would much rather have somebody in here than not in here. So I thought about that, and I thought, well, that's my advantage, is I can go ahead and have flexible terms. But the real question was, why was that space sitting for so long? Why wasn't anybody there for 3 years? That entire neighborhood had vacant buildings at the time, and now since then it's been built up. There's tons of commercial activity. It's considered an opportunity zone, so tons of businesses are coming there. At the time, no businesses were coming there. It was not a prime it wasn't a prime area, and this was in Austell, which is kind of like a small quaint city outside of Atlanta, but it's really, really, really slow. When I went online and found the space, you always want to request the marketing and the demographics for the area. So it lets you know the mean income, how much traffic is coming through, the population in the area. All of that information looked really great, and it looked like who I was targeting after. It was lots of families with kids, lots and lots and lots of traffic. That was what was important to me. However, there was a lot of traffic cutting through, because this is the route that people were taking when they didn't want to get on the highway. The problem is there was tons of traffic, but these folks were not stopping. They were driving through to get to work and back home, but they were not actually stopping there. So that information, I kind of felt like it was a little bit of deceit there. It's like, oh, that sounds really good, but it's also really, really false. So make sure that you not only get the information that they give you, but conduct your own research as well. One of the other tips that I had is to come back by their space at night. We come into those spaces during the day when business is happening and things look really great, but it's also good to go and drive back by at night. Are people loitering? Are there tons of cars in the parking lot? Is there not enough lighting? Are people hanging out? What spaces are still open? Your neighboring businesses. I had one night a sleepover, a girl's sleepover, and rather than actually spend the night in the facility, they just stayed really, really late, so almost 11 o'clock p.m. It went all night. Parents came back to pick up. I had to go back by that space because I didn't feel comfortable keeping kids there at night unless I knew what was really happening at night, and that it was a well-lit, safe and secure parking lot space, and that people were going to be okay while they were there. So I definitely had to drive by the space at night. I would suggest you do the same. You want to see your space in multiple hours throughout the day, because one other thing that I realized is during the day when I went to see it, all was well. I had right next to me a hair salon, and on the other side of me was a Maxway store, which is like a discount store. Over at Maxway, there were tons of people hanging out. There were times when I would be sitting at my desk, which was right in the front of the building, and I would be looking. There would be guys hanging out, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes. People had their dogs chained right outside of my doors as they were going into the store, the retail store next to me. So I'm thinking to myself, if somebody's trying to come here for a meeting or for business, there's a pit bull tied outside of my office because somebody couldn't take their pet into the store. So those are things you don't know until you're in the space. So I had to put out a sign outside: no loitering, no soliciting. Don't come in here asking, can you get $1 to go next door to... No, that's not what we're doing. So I started to just get those little pits inside of my stomach, like, this is not working out. This is not working out. So definitely come by that space multiple times per day. Sometimes people don't come by until you have a business there and they want to know what you have going on. Are your doors going to be open? Are you going to be keeping the place locked up where people have to call? Do you need a buzzer system or a video camera system where people can buzz at the door and say, say who they are, and then you let them in? You want to think about the security of your space. And one of those things I realized later was that I didn't want to have that system installed. And to have it installed with the type of door that I had would have been thousands of dollars. However, when I went to go see another space, I would say towards the end of last year, I had a space. I was really, 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 y'all, I have on this yellow, and I think it's attracting a lot of flying animals. So insects. So I'm trying to be careful here. I went to go view this other space, and they already had that system installed. They had an old intercom system because it used to be a pawn and check cashing place, and they had to have those kind of systems installed there per their rules and regulations. So look at what kind of business was in the space prior to you, because they might have things already installed in there that may be beneficial to you, whereas the old space that I had was a couple of $1,000s to get that installed, and then in the new space it would just be a couple of $100s to get it reactivated and to update the wiring and whatnot in the building. So make sure that you're looking for those little things too that will make a difference for you in terms of your safety and your security, is to be able to say, I would like to have my doors closed in case something pops off outside. I can easily get to my door and lock it, or I have a video camera system that allows me to see who you are and to talk with you before I actually open or unlock my door. Next, you want to check your locks. Here's the thing. When I first got into my space, I was able to lock myself inside of my facility because I was doing things like upgrading it, having the baseboards updated, painting, getting flooring put in, really making the space my own. However, when I installed our alarm system, whoever came in and put that monitor on our door, because I wanted to have my doors beep when they were opened and closed, they did something and jammed up the lock. So I was no longer able to lock myself inside the building, which meant my door was always open. Nobody knew that. Nobody tried to come in, but I knew that, and it always left me feeling uneasy that I could no longer lock my door, even though there's an alarm on this building. Make sure that you test your systems while you're in there, and make sure that things are not being changed. I'm very meticulous about watching people and what they're doing, especially if they're in the space. And then I wanted to make sure that they knew this worked before you got here. Now this doesn't work. Who's going to be accountable for getting it fixed? And they ended up saying it was a fix that needed to be done and paid for on my end. Another couple of $100 to now lock myself back in a building that I didn't break the door. Somebody else did. So make sure that you're testing your locks. Do things work? If you have multiple spaces, like I had multiple classroom space, I wanted to make sure that each of those doors locked. Because in the event that we had to do a fire drill or there was ever an emergency, I wanted to be able to express to parents that if there's anything, we can lock these kids in here. If anybody ever were to come in with a weapon, or there was, an intruder alert, those are things that I'm thinking about when I have people's children. Is there safety? Just the same way you would if there were, now in your school and we're having all of these conversations around school safety. You want to think your facility safety. You're going to be in there all day, every day. What if something goes wrong? Where are you going to hide? Where are you going to be? Where are you going to be able to put the people that are in your care? Is there a lock on that door? So I had to make sure all of my doors locked from the inside and not from the outside. And in the event that I wanted to lock my office but have all the other spaces open, was there a lock where I can just lock the door like with a key from the outside, so that people are not going in and out of my office but can go to the additional spaces that were in that facility. So check your door locks. Make note of the things that are there, because these are all additional expenses that you can incur when you come into a facility. And you want to find spaces that have the least amount of work for you to do as possible, because again, you are going to want to make your space your own. You're going to want to buy furniture and beautiful things to just make the space yours. And you don't want to have to spend additional money on things like locks and all that and leaks and things like that. Next, once you view the space, you want to call your zoning office to make sure that your business can even go there. I remember calling on a few spaces. I called the city zoning office and they said no. I tried to explain what I was doing. I said this is a youth mentoring program, so we will have our mentoring program there. We'll have events. We'll be offering tutoring. And sometimes when you have a unique offering, you do have to kind of explain yourself and what's going on there, because what we're doing is not a commonplace business. It's not restaurant. It's not hair salon. It's not some category they can lump you in. So they ended up writing on our certificate of occupancy like nonprofit office. I'm like, that's fine. But initially when I was explaining it, the zoning officer said, no, you can't put your business there. When I came back and further, came into their office and explained, she said, oh, okay, I better understand what you're saying. Yes, you can. So make sure you're talking to the right person. Make sure you're talking to somebody who has understanding, but make sure that you're delivering clarity as you're explaining, so that what you're doing, your vision is not muffled and you get a no when you really could occupy a space and be told yes. So call zoning. Make sure that your business can go there, because you do have to have a certificate of occupancy. Second thing you are going to have is a fire. Your fire chief is going to have to come out and inspect your space as well. Things I didn't know. He comes out. He's checking all of the lights of egress. You have to have and make sure your exit lights work. So if the power goes out, everybody can see how to get out of that building. Your emergency lights need to work at the front of your building. That should be over your door and over your back door. And when he went up there to press all those buttons, some of those lights were not working. Here I'm at, I was at Home Depot every day getting something for this facility. I had to go buy lights. I had to go replace. I had to put batteries in, make sure that things were working, make sure that things were beeping. He said, I'll come back out, but I can't approve this space until everything is working. He went back and made sure I had a fire extinguisher. So if you're going on your tour, look in the back of your space, typically wherever your exit is or where your fuse box and things are. Check the fire extinguisher that's there. Check the tag on it. When did it expire? Is it still good? Is that something that you're going to have to replace? Fire extinguishers, they don't cost a lot, maybe $40. You can get one at Home Depot or Lowe's. But it was like $40 I wasn't planning on spending, so I had to go back out and get it. So if you're creating a facility budget and you're saying to yourself, let me just write down some things and see how much this could potentially cost us to do a move like this, would it be worth it? If we're paying rent to rent out all these little spaces around town, we could potentially just be having our own space, but initially, once you're going into that space, there's quite a few things that you want to fix up. So one of those was the fire extinguisher. It had to be replaced. The other one was ancient. I mean, it was dust on the tag. We were just, trying to see what was going on with that. So your egress lighting, your emergency exits, your fire extinguishers, all the things that the fireman is looking for. He's looking at your outlets, making sure that there's nothing there. He's looking at your sprinkler system, making sure that there's nothing on the ceiling covering that. He wants to see your entrance and exit, your entrance and exit plan, if that's required for your particular business and in your particular city and state. So you might want to draft an emergency exit plan. And our space, it was like a shotgun space. You can only come in and go straight back out. So there was only two ways out anyway. There wasn't a ton of windows and all of that. We didn't have to deal with that because we were in the shopping plaza. So if you are in a standalone building and you have lots of windows, there may be different requirements. For you, that may require a little bit more work. It's just in the space we were in, we didn't have that issue. Next, you want to call your utility company. You want to see how much the utilities cost for your previous occupant. Because my space was vacant for so long, when I called, they said, we don't have that information, we don't have that data. So I said, okay, how about the business next to me? How much is that averaging? So because I was next to a hair salon, of course, their water bill was probably much more than mine would ever be. Because I'm not washing hair and shampooing hair all day, I only had one sink. But you just want to see what is on average, what am I going to be expected to pay in terms of utility, electric, trash, sewage. You want to see, does your space have a trash pickup, or will you be required to get a dumpster? I was responsible for dumping our trash, and I was being extremely cheap. I didn't want to purchase a dumpster, so I made a partnership with the person that was in the facility next to me. I said, since you've already purchased one, can we, can I pay you a partial payment each month just to dump my trash? I said, we don't have a ton of trash. It's just typically a trash bag. And if it wasn't too much, I would take my trash bag home and dump it in my own trash can at my house. But if it was a lot of things, like one time we had an event, there was lots of food, there was lots of stuff out, and there was a lot of trash, I just took it to the back dumpster. But you don't want to do that if you have not already set up an arrangement with whoever has that trash can, because somebody could end up, really coming after you. Some people have cameras that are watching their trash can, and they charge fines for you dumping your trash in their space. Those dumpsters run like, $200-300, and they're not cheap, or hundreds of dollars a month, depending on, because it's a commercial dumpster. So just don't put your trash in anybody's trash bin if that's an expense that particular business owner has to pay for. So we want to be mindful of that. Last two things. Oh, you also want to check your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Some places have smoke detectors. They don't have carbon monoxide detectors. You want to make sure that you have those installed, especially if you're in a space that uses gas for heat. If anything goes wrong, that goes off. Carbon monoxide is a killer, so you want to make sure it doesn't have a scent, that you are protecting yourself and others. So make sure as you're checking, as you're doing your walkthrough, where are the smoke detectors? Where is the carbon monoxide detector? Is there one installed where I just have to replace the batteries, or is there nothing here at all and I have to buy an entirely new system? Next, you want to try to negotiate your rates. So here's what I did. When I walked through, I saw so many things that were wrong. Initially, there were even so many more things that were wrong, clearly, that I didn't see on my initial walkthrough. But the things that I saw that were missing initially was like the flooring, the painting. There were a few tiles in the ceiling that needed to be replaced. So I used those to negotiate. I said, here's the thing. This building has been sitting for 3 years. Nobody is rushing over here or running to this area, but it works for what we're trying to do for business. I see quite a few things that need to be upgraded, updated, and fixed. I'm willing to fix those things if you're willing to negotiate and give me a much less rate for our monthly rent. So they were like, oh, what do you want to do? What are you talking? What numbers? This is the realtor. And the realtor took this information back to the landlord, and the landlord decided, sure, because he knew nobody was running for the space. So realize what you have that can be working towards your advantage, especially if you have a space that has been vacant for a while. But you do want to make sure that that space works for you, especially if it has been vacant for some time. Don't just jump into a space because it's cheap, because cheap is not always the best. And like I said, because my space was cheap, it worked for what I wanted to do, but eventually I ended up having to move out of that space because there were so many problems that they were not willing to fix. My landlord was like almost on his deathbed, and unfortunately he's now deceased. But because he knew that, he was letting a lot of his properties go, renting them out. He sold a lot of properties. His family had a long lineage in that Austell area for years, so he wasn't stressed about any of that. He was just like, you know what, that's what she wants, go. And I didn't realize that at the time until I had gone online and done my research on that family and realized that's why he was so nonchalant about everything. But they also knew that they were not really going to be going back and forth trying to do the work and fix things up and make things easy for a tenant. So I ended up getting out of my lease. I had a wonderful, wonderful favor on me, because they could have held me to my lease terms, but they knew because there were so many issues there. They saw what I was trying to do. I was extremely honest. I said, I can't bring anybody's kids in here. Look at the leaks. Look at this. This is not working. This is falling apart. I had to pay for this. Now this is destroyed. And they let me out of the lease. Sometimes you'll find people that's like, I don't care. You signed a 3-year lease. You in here. You owe me my money. So be mindful of your lease terms. They told me, you know, if you sign a 2 to 3 year lease, we can give you that rate, but we want to know that you're going to be in here long term. What I should have done was, let me see if my business works in this space. I'm doing a year-to-year lease, and if things, you know, are still working in our favor after a year, I can sign a multi-year lease. But see how your business does there first. I mean, at the time, I was so excited. I was filled with so much passion. I have the keys to my own space, you know, telling everybody, oh, I'm quitting my job and I'm about to go in my own space and do my own thing, which was fine. But if you then a year later have to be like, things didn't work out, then what good was that? Do your research ahead of time and make sure that you're going into a space that's going to create sustainability for you, that's going to help you put your best foot forward. Because when things go wrong and you have to cancel events or give an explanation as to why you can no longer do da-da-da-da-da, that's not good for business. So make sure that when you're looking to secure the facility, you go through this checklist. And there are so many more things that you really need to look for as well. But I wanted to make sure I gave you the most important things first, because I don't want you to get screwed out of a lease, out of your dollars, out of your time and energy, because it requires all of that to go into a space. Fortunately, I had a team of people who were extremely supportive, staying in there with me most nights till 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. We're ordering pizza. Getting that space just right, only to have to walk away from it, hurt me to my core. Packing up all the stuff that I had invested so much time and dollars in on that U-Haul truck, I literally stood there and cried. Because I'm like, man, why didn't this work out? But everything works in God's time. But it also works in our favor when we do our research and we hold ourselves accountable as well. So we can't just say, oh, it wasn't my season. It might have been. You just didn't do your research. So make sure that you do things, like I said, decent and in order. I only say that because sometimes things go downhill because you didn't know any better. And some things go downhill because they have absolutely nothing to do with you and they just weren't right from the get-go. So as I'm moving forward in the business, I'm really skeptical about everything that I see in spaces. When I ask a realtor, why is that bubble and stain there? It looks like it was a leak right here. And they're like, oh, nothing to worry about. No, yes, something to worry about. I've had this happen before. Don't want it to happen again. I don't have time for stuff to be flooded, drained in buckets and doing all and begging for dollars to have roofs fixed when you just moved into a space. How does that look? Not good. So I'm really hard on the realtors that I've worked with because I don't want to incur those situations again. So make sure that you are on your people, because that's your energy, your time, your dollars. You want to secure a solid space. Now, if you're saying to yourself, I'm not interested, after that, I'm not interested in doing any of that right now. I just want to rent out a space. Let's talk about some of your free options. You do have the option of renting out your local library. It's an option that we're taking right now for meetings. It's free if you are a nonprofit. If you're a for-profit, there's typically a fee. There's typically a fee if you want to bring in food into your space. So you want to check those guidelines. How many people can be here? What is the latest I can be here? What's the earliest I can be here? Am I allowed to bring food? What are your what AV equipment do you have available? Do you have a podium? Do you have a microphone? Do you have a speaker system, projector screen? What would I need to bring in? What can't I bring in? Can I hang stuff on the wall? What kind of material do I have to use? All those questions you want to ask, even if it's free, because if it's free and you're still not able to do things to your standard, what's the point? Utilizing your free space. You also have your local community center tends to have multi-purpose rooms that are available for renting out as well. Same thing, small fee to rent out, but if you establish a very good relationship with some of your local people and facilities, sometimes they can discount things for you. So establishing good relationships from the beginning is very key, because sometimes folks will look out for you, and that's really a great thing to have, especially if you're hosting lots of events throughout the years. Definitely a good tip is to reach out to people ahead of time. Say, hey, we're new to this area. I'm looking to be hosting a webinar, a workshop or a seminar is what I'm trying to say, every month or twice a month, and I know that I'm going to be wanting to utilize this space a lot. What can you all do for me? Because, I want to make sure that we're using our best, making the best use of our time and dollars. And let them give it to you, whatever it is that they can do for you. Let them work that out. But ask. Closed mouths don't get fed, right? And then in terms of negotiating, whatever you have in your lease terms, rental terms, is negotiable. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not negotiable. It is. Whether you have your facility, whether you're renting out space. Say, how about that deposit? Like, can I just pay for the space? Or can we work out the deposit situation? Or can I have this space a little bit longer? Or if I do this, can this happen? If I get the food, can this be waived? Or if I get a room, if you're doing a hotel, if I get a hotel room here, can this be waived or reduced? Negotiate what you want to have happen in your space, especially if you're utilizing it on hours that are not prime time hours. A lot of folks do things Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you are hosting, Lord have mercy. Okay. If you're hosting events throughout the week, you may have more flexible terms. Nobody is running in there for that space during that time. So if you know I have a really huge following, I know that my people show up, negotiate. Negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. That's all I can say to you 1,000,000 times over. I ran from that wasp, y'all. Did you see me? To secure your space, most definitely. I don't fool with it, y'all. To secure your space, most definitely negotiate. Get things on the terms that you want them on. You are a business owner. You are a leader. And it's most certainly possible to do. Okay? I'm about to take my happy honey inside because it's prime wasp hour. It's hot today and they are everywhere. There's so much pollen. They're everywhere. I'm probably going to be doing my next live inside because this right here on every video, not okay. Anywho, that was me. I'm wrapping that up for today. Anyway, if you are interested in learning more about securing spaces, if there's any questions I can answer for you, drop them below in the comment box or send me an email, Regina@reginacoley.com. Again, I extend an invitation to you to join the Call to Cultivate Masterclass. You can learn more about it over at reginacoley.com/cultivate. If you want to go back and check out the replays, all the replays are still available for the 21 days of power programming over at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/motivate her. Leave comments under those as well, even if it's a past recording. I would love to answer questions for you, especially if you're coming in and you're like, I didn't know anything about this. I need to go see the other ones. Go back and check them as well. I'm happy and I'm here to support you and help you build your best program ever. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.